Hello ladies and gents, and welcome to today's Youth Online session. If you're joining us for the first time today, then you are so welcome. Today we have a cracking session planned for you to listen and join in with. So I'd really encourage you, if you're a note taker like myself, to go and grab a pen and a piece of paper, to grab some people from your household to come and join in the session with you, and to sit somewhere comfortable so we can get started. So today's story is looking at the book of Daniel. I absolutely love the story that we're focusing on today because it really teaches us about true and unshakable faith and God's ability to protect his people with his power. I just think it's really cool. But before we look at the story, we're going to get started on our first game for today. So for this game, I'd really invite you and each member of your household to go and grab an ice cube from your freezer. So this game is all about endurance. The challenge is for you to place the ice cube on your tongue and press it into the roof of your mouth, but keeping your mouth a little bit open still. And the aim is to keep the ice cube there for the longest. So the last person in your group to have the ice cube in position wins.
55 seconds isn't bad.
Okay, so you've seen me have a go at that challenge. It's now your turn. Can you beat 55 seconds? I think you probably can. It's your turn. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go!
that was a good game. I hope that no one's got too sore a mouth or any kind of brain freeze. But the reason we played that game was today we're looking at the impact of different temperatures. So the story today is all about people going into a real hot place. And obviously that's exactly the opposite, but it was just to help us think about how different temperatures can affect us. And so what we're going to do next is a game called Poker Face. So what we want is one volunteer to sit somewhere and just close their eyes, and then another person is going to slowly move and just try to poke them without them being able to guess when it's going to happen. And the person with their eyes closed is going to be able to pat away 3 times. After that, then they've kind of gone, and the person is free to just poke them gently. And then once you've done it once, swap over so the poker becomes the pokey, poked. And yeah, just enjoy. I'll see you soon.
Hi guys, I hope that you enjoyed that game and I hope that everyone's eyeballs are still intact. The purpose of that game was to help us learn what it is to expect for something to happen to us. And we're going to move now into a time of discussion, and some questions are going to appear on the screen, and there'll be some time given for you to discuss them with the people around you and to have a think about what your responses to those questions are.
Guys, I want to tell you a little story about someone who is incredibly inspiring. You may have heard of him, you may not. Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick was born in 1987 in Wisconsin. Kaepernick has a white mother and an African American father of Ghanaian, Nigerian and Ivorian ancestry. Kaepernick was also pretty good at sport. He played 6 seasons for the San Francisco 49ers in the National Football League. Now the NFL, to those who don't know, is American football and it's as big as soccer is here. And the San Francisco 49ers are the kind of the equivalent of like a big team, like a Tottenham, over in America. In the 49ers' third preseason game in 2016, Kaepernick sat during the playing of the US national anthem prior to the game, rather than stand as is customary, as a protest against racial injustice, police brutality and systematic oppression in the country. The following week and throughout the regular season, Kaepernick knelt during the anthems. The protests received highly polarised reactions, with you've got some people on one hand praising him for his stand against racism, and others denouncing those protests as anti-establishment, as disrespecting the flag. The actions resulted in a wider protest movement. Trump came out at a similar time, I think in 2017, and condemned Kaepernick's actions directly, to the point where he even called on his employers to fire him. Now, Kaepernick did become a free agent, i.e. he lost his job at the end of the season, and remains unsigned to this day, which many observers, and it's not a big stretch of the imagination to make that link, have attributed to political reasons because of this kneeling. Kaepernick was seen to be disrespecting the country, the leader, the flag, for standing up for what is right, for standing up for injustice, and for sticking to what he believes in. Sound a bit familiar? Let's see if you can get us to the Bible passage. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in Daniel, in chapter 3, refused to conform to something that they did not believe was right. They in fact refused to kneel the other way around for their own sort of protest. They refused to adhere to what the king was asking of them. They refused worship. They refused to worship the king and his lowercase g gods. Regardless of the consequences, they did this. And what do we see in both stories? Kaepernick is now being followed by thousands through Black Lives Matter, with acts of support for the movement now prevalent across the globe, from football to Formula 1 with Lewis Hamilton taking the lead there, to cricket, to any live sport really at the moment. And Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, leading the king of the time, of a huge nation, a global power, leading the king of that time to worship their own God, Yahweh, and shift away from the worship of idols for an entire nation. Let's dive into the passage.
Daniel 3 verses 8 to 30. But some of the astrologers went to the king and informed on the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "Long live the king. You issued a decree requiring all people to bow down and worship the gold statue when they hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, live harp, pipes and other musical instruments." That decree also states that those who refuse to obey must be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, who you have put in charge of the province of Babylon. They pay no attention to your majesty. They refuse to serve your gods and do not worship the golden statue you have set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar flew into a rage and ordered Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego to be brought before him. When they were brought in, Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, that you refuse to serve my gods or to worship the gold statue I have set up? I will give you one more chance to bow down and worship the statue I have made when you hear the sound of musical instruments. But if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And then what God will be able to help you from my power?" Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego replied, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we will want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the golden statue you have set up." Nebuchadnezzar was so furious with Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego that his face became distorted with rage. He commanded that the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual. Then he ordered some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So they tied them up and threw them into the furnace, fully dressed in their pants, turbans, robes and other garments. And then, because the king in his anger had demanded such a hot fire in the furnace, the flames killed the soldiers as they threw the 3 men in. So Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, securely tied, fell into the roaring flames. But suddenly Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, "Didn't we tie 3 men up and throw them in the furnace?" "Yes, your majesty, we certainly did," they replied. "Look," Nebuchadnezzar shouted, "I see 4 men unbound walking around in the fire unharmed, and the 4th looks like a god." Then Nebuchadnezzar came as close as he could to the door of the flaming furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego stepped out of the fire. And then the high officers, officials, governors and advisors crowded around them and saw the fire had not touched them. Not a hair on their heads was singed and their clothing was not scorched. They didn't even smell like smoke. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. He sent his angel to rescue his servants who trusted him. They defied the king's commands and were willing to die rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore I make this decree: if any people, whatever their race or nation or language, speak a word against the God of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, they will be torn limb from limb and their houses will be turned into a heap of rubble. There is no other God who can rescue like this." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego to even higher positions in the province of Babylon.
Hi guys, welcome to Sutton Vineyard Youth Online. My name is Ben and I'm the youth pastor here at Sutton Vineyard. And tonight we're carrying on with our series Even Me, and we're in the book of Daniel. However, we're in Daniel, but Daniel isn't actually in this story. But what we can see from it reflects some of Daniel within it. And so to start off with, I want to offer you 2 things. So, the first is a very nice salad that I actually did make myself. And so we've got tomatoes and cucumber and lovely salad, really healthy. And then the other one is this sandwich, and I don't know if you'll be able to see all of that inside, but it's kind of gooey cheese with slow cooked meat, and there's some red onion in there, and it's been put in the toasty maker so it's still nice and warm. And the reason that I show you those is because this is part of the context for the story that we're going to be looking at today. So we're looking at 3 guys who serve God, and within this, just before this happened, Daniel was kind of the leader of these 3 guys, and he chose to take up a certain diet because he wanted to stay true to God. And the king was telling all of the people around him that his diet was the best way, and he wanted them to be fed up, not bored, but kind of he wanted to feed them up on all of the best foods, because at that point in that society, weight was seen as prosperity. It was to do with you being rich and being able to afford a lot of food. And so for Daniel, it was a massive thing that he didn't do that, and that actually he was able to come through that and stay true to God, and God stayed true to him within it. And so, to today's story that we've just read, thank you James, there are 2 sections if you're a note taker. So 2 sections, and then one bit at the end where it's kind of, what's this got to do with us? How does this affect our lives? So the first bit is there's the practical element of this story. The second bit is there's a spiritual element to this story. And so the practical element, there were 3 people, Meshach, Shadrach and Abednego, who were unwilling to have any other God. As we know from the 10 Commandments, thou shalt have no God but me. That means that our God, Yahweh, is the only God that we worship. And in this story, the king was trying to become one of those gods. And there's a whole load of context into why the king thought he was a god, or how kings were seen as gods. But within this, these three guys were unwilling to do anything other than what God had called them to. And Sarah and I recently watched Frozen 2. It came out on Disney Plus. And as part of this story, there's this bit where Anna, in it, is kind of all alone. She has lost everybody. And she's in this cave. And she's trying to think about where she's going to go next. And she decides that all she can do is the next right thing. And so within it, that is what she does. And I was really reminded of parallels with this story, because these guys just kept doing what was right. And through it all, they actually learn a whole load, show us a whole load, and we can see that God comes to their aid. And so really what we can see from the parallel of that, and what we can see from the practical element, is that we have a choice at any time to do what we know is right, even though it might not be easy, and even though we know that people won't like it, and it might not make for our lives to be easier, but actually we still know it's right, and we still have that choice to do the next right thing, just as Anna and just as the three who ended up going to a furnace did. And the second part of it is that there is a spiritual element to it, that actually they were thrown in a fire that was heated 7 times hotter than usual. The soldiers that brought them to the fire died because they got so hot and it just wasn't something that they could withstand. And yet these three, who won't kneel and bow down to a golden statue of King Nebuchadnezzar, were unharmed. Obviously there is a scientific element to it where you go, well, even their hair should have been burnt, because that's really easy to burn. And within it we can really see that God does provide. And then we read that when King Nebuchadnezzar comes to see what's gone on, that he can see a 4th person in there with them. And some speculate that this was the first appearance of the Son of God, of Jesus being with them. And in my Bible it suggests that it's a divine being that is there with them. And there's a bit of me that would absolutely love to know that conversation that goes on while they're in there, because obviously we will never find that out until we get to heaven itself. But the thing that I want to focus on there is God stepped in as those guys stepped out. He provided, he looked after them, he protected. And the practical element is that they did what was right, and the spiritual element is that God protects and provides and looks after them in an almighty way. And the people, King Nebuchadnezzar himself, realizes that the one true God is the God that these guys have been faithful to. And yeah, the king was amazed when he saw another person in there, because that doesn't make any sense. But that's part of it. God is able to do so much more than we even understand. There's something powerful within that when we begin to say, oh well, this is too big for God, or this issue, he can't help me with it. I don't think there's ever going to be an issue that any of us have to try and deal with that God can't at least go through it with us and probably do something about. So we've looked at the practical, we've looked at the spiritual, and now what does this mean for us? And for some of you this could be a massive challenge. For some of you it could be an encouragement. But like the three main guys in this story, we have a choice to make. And like Anna, what is the next right thing that we could do? It may be that for the last few months during lockdown you've got into really great routines and habits and practices, and it may be that you don't want to lose that as we begin to kind of ease the lockdown. It could be that for some of you, you absolutely haven't got into any of those good routines, but you really want to. Great, okay. It's as simple as making a little decision. It's as simple as going, all right, let's turn that off so that I can focus on something better for me. And that could be the next right thing. And I was just on the phone this morning, and there was I was having a conversation with someone about prophecy, and they were saying that there's a thing going on at the minute, and there was a picture given to them of a butterfly coming from a caterpillar, and the chrysalis time where you can't really see anything going on. We don't know what happens in there, but actually during that time of nothing, stillness, not being able to kind of fly or be a caterpillar, there is something amazing going on, so that at the end of it, a butterfly does come out of it. And I know that I'm not asking you to become butterflies or anything like that, but actually this is a time for us to invest in ourselves, and there's an opportunity for us to go, okay, I might just start doing that, or I might just start trying that a little bit and allowing God to speak to us through it. So the question is, as we continue to move forward, will we make good decisions, or could things just go back to the way they were? Are we going to continue in those great things, or are we going to kind of ignore it? Because, yeah, that is also an option. So I just want you to think on that, and then I'm going to pray to finish, and I hope to see you all very soon. All right, let's just pray. Father God, we thank you that you provide for us, that you look after us, and that you are a protector, that there is nothing that you can't do. And Father, I pray that as we move forward in the days and weeks and months ahead, as society continues to move and change and be a little bit different, I pray that we may be able to spot new ways to connect with you, and that in so doing, we will be able to become more of the people that you made us to be. Amen. Bless you guys. Have a great evening, and I look forward to seeing you soon. All right. Bye-bye.